Welcome to Advocate Today. I'm Tracy Gilchrist. Thank you for joining me. We're celebrating women and girls everywhere this March by spotlighting women-led stories. Kristen Kish is one of the most accomplished chefs in the industry. She won season 10 of Top Chef and launched cookbooks and restaurants along the way. Now she's going around the world with Nat Geo for the new series Restaurants on the Edge of the World. I went one-on-one with a queer chef to talk about the stories of the people she worked with, how her identity relates to food, and more. First, I want to say congratulations on Restaurants at the End of the World. It's so incredible to watch. And I wonder, would you talk a little bit about your inspiration for this show?
It started in 2019. So as we all know, we missed a good chunk of 2020.
Yeah.
So it started in 2019 as a different kind of seed of a project. And then eventually over time, it gets to the pitching stages. And then it started getting pitched in, I can't remember, in 2020, late 2020. And Nat Geo eventually bought it. And so when that happened, it got kind of flipped around. It kind of new ideas started to come around. Nat Geo obviously put their spin on it, and it became Restaurants at the End of the World. So the original seed idea was exploring people and across the country, family meals, what that means, restaurants, families, chosen families, given families, whatever. And so it kind of took an adventurous spin on that. And then it just so happens that we're going out to the middle of nowhere. So I am thrilled that I went this direction.
It's so much fun to watch. It's a food show. It's an adventure show. Would you talk a little bit about some of the greater challenges that you had? I mean, we see you rappelling for food items. We see you scuba diving. Would you talk a little bit about what that was like? And was there an adventure that was a little scary for you that you were really like, I don't want to do this?
I think anytime there's uncertainty involved, there is a little bit of like fear on the other side of it. And it's just kind of working through that fear. I had the great luxury of having National Geographic and Disney safety teams along with me. So that kind of like, helped calm the nerves.
Yeah.
But like, for example, rappelling, a lot of these things, maybe some people have done with watching the show and some people haven't. Obviously, these are things that I'm doing for the very first time in a lot of cases. And so when we did rappelling, I kind of wish my first rappel was the one that made it on camera. It wasn't. So I can happily and funnily admit that when I first got to the top of that mountain, so you have to like hike all the way there. So that's an adventure in and of itself that is not filmed. All of a sudden I just end up at the top of this place. And I get there and I kind of take my first step backwards. And because I've never done this before, I'm like trying to find my footing as we are going through the motions. And my feet go up above my head. I go upside down and I'm laying back flat upside down on this waterfall. And like water is going in my face. I'm like, oh, what's happening right now? And I look around and no one seems to be panicking. And I was like, okay, so am I just supposed to be figuring out how to like get myself right side up by myself? And the answer was yes. So Rolando's there helping me. I eventually get my way up there and I do it again. And I, do it properly the first or the second time. But yeah, that was the first try. So naturally, yeah, there's some fear because things like that can happen.
I mean, I do wish they had shown that. Yeah, because that's very real.
I want to see the footage. I haven't seen that footage, but it was because I looked directly into the camera. Because when you have to talk to like a producer, you look into the camera because they're watching like these portable monitors. And I'm like, what's happening? So no one was stepping in, which led me to believe that everything was fine. But yes, I want to see it.
Maybe there will be an outtakes reel.
I hope so. I hope so.
So you go from Panama to Brazil to Maine to Norway as far as I've seen so far. And I wonder, would you talk a little bit about how your food philosophy dovetails with some of these incredible restaurants that you profile on the show?
My food journey and trying to figure out what my food story was took a long time and trial and error, because much of my career, much of anyone's cooking career starts by cooking other people's food for a very long time. And eventually then, if you so choose to, so you step out on your own, and then you're like, well, what's my food story? And over time, it took me a good amount of years to try to figure that out. And the more and more I relaxed into who I was and pulling things that comfort me, whether that be from my childhood or restaurant worthy dishes or not, that's the food story that I want to tell, because it's the only one that hasn't been told. And so going into these places with these people, trying to understand who they are and why they are the way they are, simply because I'm learning about who they are, just like to the core, then leads me into the place of, okay, now I can understand their food. And now this all makes sense, because that's what makes the most sense to me.
Is there something that you learned about yourself through these various adventures that you would like to share?
Well, it was solidified that I still hate mosquitoes. And what I really learned was that, I've always been curious about how people live and where they come from and the food that they're cooking, of course. But I surprised and challenged myself in the way that I was able to adventure, like properly adventure. Because with the help of National Geographic, obviously there's a bit of, comfort and confidence doing it with them. But it was in such a way that, I surprised myself, where the actual task at hand maybe wasn't the thing that surprised me, but it's surprising me that I want to go back and do more and even bigger adventures. So that was like, all right, I still can do this.
You have a few intersections of identities as an Asian woman, as a queer person. And would you talk a little bit about food bringing people together in ways that maybe those identities are celebrated, but not the whole picture?
Right. I think we've always said food brings people together. Everybody's been saying that, and it's completely true. And it's a sentiment that, is widely known and felt. If we eat, you have to eat, and it connects you to something or somewhere. But being aware and being open-minded to take it 10 steps further, to say, okay, I grew up with people and friends, like oftentimes I would be too scared to bring a tuna fish sandwich to school because everyone's going to make fun of me because it smells, right? And I feel like a lot of people have foods, right, that were brought into circumstances that felt different or out of place. But I think as we've learned that is a moment of celebration and inclusivity and diversifying one's knowledge about somebody else and where they come from, because what better way to learn that is through food, because we all have to eat to live. And that's like, it is. Food brings people together. Food can be a moderator in hard conversations. It's a celebration. It comforts. It might cause discomfort in a lot of people, or challenge someone's thoughts or beliefs or whatever, but it's something that we all need. We just all have different versions of it. And it's a really great way to learn about someone, even if you don't speak the same language. So obviously on all these locations, we went to places where we could communicate in English, right? They could, speak enough to me where I understood, and, because I don't know any other language, unfortunately. So they're already like trying to decipher my crappy Spanish. But I think, hopefully, as everyone's getting their feet wet and we hopefully are able to do more of these, is that it will prove that food carries over and like surpasses the language barriers, right? And still there can be a form of connection.
Thank you to Chef Kristen Kish for stopping by. I'm incredibly inspired by her work and her ability to cook, which is something I don't have. Restaurants at the End of the World premieres March 21st on Nat Geo. You can visit advocatechannel.com or the Advocate Channel wherever you stream for more content and coverage. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. I'll see you next time.